Ever heard of a secret weapon so simple, yet so powerful that it completely baffled the top brass of the military? A weapon that wasn't a bomb, a torpedo, or a new type of radar, but chalk and the masterminds behind it. Not seasoned engineers or codebreakers, but a group of teenage girls. It sounds like something out of a Hollywood movie, but this is the incredible true story of how young women, armed with little more than chalk and cleverness, helped turn the tide in the Battle of the Atlantic during World War II. Picture this. It's the early 1940s. The Atlantic Ocean is a deadly hunting ground. German U-boats, the infamous Wolfpacks, are sinking Allied supply ships at an alarming rate. Britain is on the brink of starvation, and the entire war effort hangs in the balance. The Royal Navy is desperate. They're throwing everything they have at the problem. But the U-boats are like ghosts. They strike and vanish, leaving a trail of fire and wreckage. The Admirals are tearing their hair out, convinced the Germans have some kind of futuristic technology, some super-secret sonar that makes their U-boats invisible. But the truth was far simpler and far more ingenious. The Germans weren't using advanced tech. They were using basic geometry and a simple, mechanical torpedo calculator. The U-boat commander would spot a convoy, measure its speed and bearing, input the data, and the calculator would spit out the perfect firing solution. It was brutally effective. The Allies needed a way to counter this, to make their ships unpredictable, to throw off the U-boat's calculations. They needed to stop sailing in straight lines. But how do you coordinate a whole convoy of massive lumbering cargo ships to zigzag in unison without causing chaos and collisions? Enter the Western Approaches Tactical Unit, or WATU, tucked away in a basement in Liverpool. This top-secret group was tasked with cracking the U-boat code, not with cryptography, but with tactics. Leading the unit was Captain Gilbert Roberts, a brilliant but retired naval officer brought back into service. He was a maverick, someone who thought outside the box, and he knew that to beat an unconventional enemy, he needed an unconventional team. He didn't recruit seasoned captains or naval strategists. Instead, he recruited young women, mostly from the Women's Royal Naval Service, or WRENS. Many of them were just teenagers. Why? Because Roberts believed they had something the old guard admirals lacked: fresh minds, unburdened by rigid, traditional naval doctrine. They were puzzle solvers, game players, women with sharp, analytical minds. He presented them with a problem, not on a fancy computer screen, but on a linoleum floor, marked up with chalk to represent the ocean. Small wooden models represented the ships and U-boats. It was a life-sized board game, with the highest possible stakes. The setup was nicknamed the game. The women would crawl around on their hands and knees, pushing the model ships, testing out different maneuvers, trying to think like a U-boat commander. It was here, in this dusty basement, that the real breakthrough happened. One of the WRENS, a young woman named Jean Laidlaw, had a moment of pure genius. She realized that if a U-boat fired its torpedoes based on the convoy's initial course, and the convoy then immediately turned towards the U-boat, the torpedoes would miss, passing harmlessly behind them. It was completely counterintuitive. Every sailor's instinct is to turn away from a threat, not towards it. When Captain Roberts presented this idea to the Admiralty, they were skeptical, to say the least. Turn towards the U-boat. Are you mad? They scoffed. They couldn't believe that a group of girls playing with chalk and toy boats could have possibly outsmarted the entire German submarine command. It seemed like suicide. The admirals were convinced it was a trap, a fatal miscalculation. But Roberts and his team were persistent. They used their chalk and lean war game to prove the theory, running simulation after simulation. They demonstrated, mathematically and practically, how the maneuver, which they codenamed Raspberry, worked. The key was that the U-boat had to surface to calculate the shot, fire, and then dive to escape. This process took time. The Raspberry maneuver exploited that time lag perfectly. It was a simple, elegant solution to a deadly problem. Finally, grudgingly, the Admiralty agreed to a trial. The next convoy commander who spotted a U-boat was ordered to execute the Raspberry. The tension must have been unbearable. Imagine being on that bridge, seeing a U-boat surface, and giving the order to steer your ship directly into the path of danger. Trusting a theory cooked up by a bunch of teenagers in a basement, but it worked. The torpedoes sliced through the water right where the ship would have been but the ship was no longer there. It passed safely by. The success was immediate and dramatic. The Raspberry and other tactics developed by the WRENS at WATU were quickly adopted across the entire Allied fleet. Ship losses plummeted for the first time. The Wolfpacks weren't just being evaded, they were being hunted. Once the convoy turned towards the U-boat, the escort ships, the destroyers and corvettes, knew exactly where the enemy was. The hunter became the hunted. The women of WATU were the unsung heroes of the Battle of the Atlantic. Their work, done in secret, saved countless lives and ships. They never fired a shot, but their contribution was as vital as any sailor on the front lines. They proved that ingenuity, creativity, and a willingness to challenge convention could be more powerful than any weapon. The admirals who had scoffed were forced to eat their words. They began sending their own captains to Liverpool to learn the game from these brilliant young women. This story was classified for decades after the war. The women of WWII went back to their normal lives, sworn to secrecy, their incredible contribution unknown to the public. They were clerks, teachers, mothers, carrying with them the secret of how their chalk lines and strategic minds had helped win the war. It's a powerful reminder that heroes come in all forms. And sometimes the biggest victories are won not with brute force, but with a sharp mind and a fresh perspective. It shows us that you should never, ever underestimate the power of a good idea, no matter who it comes from. Thanks so much for watching. This is one of those incredible hidden stories from history that just blows my mind, and I hope you found it as fascinating as I did. If you enjoyed this, please hit that like button and consider subscribing for more stories you might not have heard in history class. Let me know in the comments what you think. We'll see you in the next one.